Chapter 31. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wake up, stop pretending to be dead. Su-Jean kicked him a few times, and Professor Lizard woke up leisurely. As soon as he woke up, he waved his thick arms and hit Su-Jean. Careful, Twinkle couldn't help shouting. However, Su-Jean just raised his hand. In an instant, Professor Lizard's movement stopped abruptly, and his arms stopped in front of Su-Jean's eyes. Unable to move, Professor Lizard was a little panicked. Judging from the veins popping out on his body, it was obvious that he was trying his best to resist. Su-Jean could also feel that it was slightly difficult to control him, but this level of difficulty was nothing. Big Lizard, you better behave, otherwise, I won't mind turning you into a roasted lizard. Su-Jean raised his other hand, and flames burst out instantly. The hot flames made Professor Lizard instantly give up his resistance and did not dare to move. The temperature of thousands of degrees was enough to turn him into a dead lizard. Who are you? Professor Lizard asked hoarsely. It doesn't matter who I am, what's important is that I'm curious about why you want to catch mutants. She has the ability to grow bones. Professor Lizard said. Although it was just such a sentence, Su-Jean understood it immediately and sneered. No wonder you don't play with the little spider and come here to catch mutants. You see that she can grow bones, so you want to study it to see if a broken arm will grow back. You really don't want to give up. If it were you, you wouldn't give up. Professor Lizard said coldly, listen, I don't want to be your enemy, let me go, and I promise not to trouble her again. Really? It's a pity that you don't cause trouble for her, but I want to cause trouble for you. Su-Jean sneered, and the flame on his hand grew larger instantly, immediately surrounding Professor Lizard. The flames burned, and Professor Lizard screamed ferociously, struggling continuously. However, Su-Jean used his mind power to control him so that he could not escape. No. Don't, let me go, let me go. Professor Lizard screamed and begged for mercy as he was being burned. My name is Su-Jean, and I work for S.H.I.E.L.D. for the time being. If I remember correctly, you seem to be on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s criminal list, right? So, why should I let you go? Or do you think I will be like Spider-Man? Stupid, I just catch you every time, then let you escape, and then catch you again. Playing this kind of house-like game? Su-Jean said with a sneer. Professor Lizard could feel that he wanted to kill him. Unlike Spider-Man or others, because the so-called justice or kindness would only imprison him even if he was caught, he could feel the murderous aura in Su-Jean, the real murderous aura. I am willing to surrender to you. I am willing to be your subordinate. I can do many things for you. I am a professor. I know the technology and you can use it. Please, let me go and don't kill me. Lizard the professor shouted loudly. Technology. These two words moved Su-Jean a little. Professor Lizard felt that the flames seemed to have stopped, and knowing that there was a door, he hurriedly said, I know a lot of technology, and I have my own laboratory. I can also help you do a lot of things that are inconvenient for you. I am willing to be loyal to you, surrender to you. It all sounds interesting, but the question is, why should I trust you? You are very strong. I dare not lie to you. If I lie to you, I won't be able to escape even if I run anywhere, right? Professor Lizard said hurriedly in assurance. Snort. Su-Jean snorted and removed the flames and telekinesis. Professor Lizard slumped on the ground, with a faint smell of burning coming from his body, very miserable, very embarrassed. I believe you for the time being, but you'd better show your value. I'm not a good-tempered person. Now, you can get out. When I need you, I will naturally come to you. Su-Jean waved his hand. Professor Lizard responded, turned around and ran away dejectedly. You could tell that Professor Lizard was very depressed. Thinking about it, he was originally going to capture mutants to cure his broken arm, but he didn't catch the mutants, and the hope of curing his broken arm was gone. Not to mention he almost lost his life. To become someone else's little brother, you will know how depressing it is when you think about it. Su-Jean didn't believe him, but he wasn't worried that he would regret it or make any small moves. This is the benefit of strength. With strength, you can do what you want to do without worrying about this or that. See, it's that simple to solve the problem. Su Zhan turned around and walked over and said to Shuang Shuang and Skeleton. The expressions of admiration on the two people's faces were very great. They didn't expect that the originally difficult danger could be solved so easily. This not only proved Su Zhan's power, but also made them want to become stronger. Can I follow you? His bones were a little tense, and he asked Su Zhan calmly, his eyes full of expectation. Of course, I am building my own team. If you are willing to join, of course I welcome it. Su Zhan was very happy about Bones' surrender. Although he didn't know the strength of Bones yet, of course the more subordinates the better. Chapter 0040 I Am God. 3 days later, Hong Kong, the endless crowds of people on the street and the flashing neon lights all around prove how prosperous the nightlife here is. A man and 2 women walking on the busy street attracted a lot of attention. Boss, who are we looking for? Shuang Huan stood on the left side of Su Zhan and asked curiously, while Skeleton on the other side heard Huan Shuang ask and asked curiously, this is my first time coming to Hong Kong. There are so many people. Are we looking for mutants? It's not just mutants who have abilities. There are many people who have special abilities for various reasons. For example, he is a street magician. Do you think he has abilities? Su Zhan pointed casually. A man who was doing magic next to him said casually. Twinkle looked at Marrow and curled her lips and said, this is just magic, not an ability, and it's still a very bad magic. Su Zhan smiled noncommittally and said slowly, the person we are looking for is called Chen Haran, you can also call him Oxybustion Flame Man. His ability can release flames, but it is not strong and can only be regarded as a spark. However, a single spark can start a prairie fire, and as long as he keeps working hard, he can also become very strong. But his current profession is not a superhero, just a bad magician. With that said, Su Zhan already walked towards the magician next to him. Twinkle and Bones looked at each other in surprise. It couldn't be, it was him, right? The magician ended his performance and was a little disappointed when he saw the dull reactions of the audience around him. He probably thought that his work today was in vain. Just as he was about to put away the hat containing the money on the ground, someone suddenly inserted a few US dollar bills into it. The magician was stunned for a moment and looked up at the young man who gave him the money. Thanks, he has been performing on the streets for so long and has never received so much money. Su Zhan shrugged. To be honest, your magic is really bad, but I think you should have something more exciting, but I just don't know if you can let me see it. The magician shook his head. Sorry, I don't know what you are talking about. This is already my most wonderful performance. Chapter 32. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Really? Chen Haran, is this your most exciting performance? Su Zhan said with a smile. Magician Chen Haran was stunned. You know my name. Of course, I came here specifically to see you, so let's talk somewhere else. Chen Haran hesitated for a moment and finally nodded. Then go to my house. Your home is not safe. Su Zhan smiled and led Chen Haran towards Shuang Marrow and Marrow, then said hello and walked to the alley next to them. Here. It doesn't seem like a place to talk. Chen Haran asked curiously. Su Zhan didn't say anything but looked at Shuang Shuang. Shuang Shuang casually threw the crystal and opened the portal. Chen Haran was stunned. Let's go. Su Zhan grabbed Chen Haran's shoulders and jumped in with him, then the portal closed and the alley returned to calm. What is this place? A moment later, the portal appeared. Chen Haran looked at the unfamiliar hotel room and asked Su Zhan nervously. USA. Su Zhan smiled and said. America? How is this possible? In the blink of an eye, he came to the United States from Hong Kong. Chen Haran looked at Su Zhan and the others in disbelief, especially Shuang Shuang. This ability was so amazing. Who are you and why are you looking for me? Chen Haran asked Su Zhan. You'd better show your strength first. Su Zhan wants to recruit Chen Haran, but the premise is, this Chenharan needs to be recruited. Although Chenharan is still a little confused, it can be seen that they have no ill intentions for the time being, and they have also shown their abilities and know their own details. There is no need to hide anything at this time. So Chenharan stretched out his palm and burst out a small flame. Then he raised his head somewhat proudly, only to find that Su Zhan's expression was very dull, and the two women next to him even curled their lips in dissatisfaction. "This is my ability," Chenharan said. "It is indeed a spark, that although I had known about his abilities for a long time, I was still a little disappointed after seeing him. A fire of this magnitude really has no lethality. Are you looking down on me?" Chenharan showed off his abilities with great satisfaction, but found that Su Zhan didn't seem very excited. "This is the ability given to me by God, a unique ability." "Unique?" Su Zhan pouted, "You think too highly of yourself. If your abilities are given by God, then I am God." As soon as he finished speaking, hot flames suddenly appeared from Su Zhan's body, covering his whole body. "No." His whole body turned into flames. Chenharan was stunned by Su Zhan's sudden change. Looking at Su Zhan, whose whole body turned into flames, and then looking at the small flames in the palm of his hand, Chenharan put away the flames in frustration and was deeply shocked. Su Zhan put away the flame, looked at the frustrated Chenharan and said, "Although your ability is still very weak, I can help you become stronger. Follow me, I will make you stronger and truly show your strength." His words were not very inflammatory, but they made Chenharan's eyes brighter and brighter. He had always believed that his abilities were gifts given by God. He believed that he could definitely do something good and become a superhero. Now, Su Zhan's words ignited his confidence and opened the door to the road of superheroes. Looking at Su Zhan, he nodded excitedly. Chapter 0041 Battle Alliance. Chenharan is on the list of S.H.I.E.L.D., and there is a dedicated person in charge who has to contact him regularly to ensure that he has not disappeared or had any accidents. When Chenharan told Su Zhan about this with some anxiety, Su Zhan didn't care at all. He himself is also included in this so-called list. Not only him, but basically everyone with superpowers, famous or unknown, is on it. Basically, as long as you are strong enough, you can ignore this matter. Chenharan is capable, but not that strong, so he will naturally be supervised. Since you are following me now, you don't have to worry about S.H.I.E.L.D. As long as I don't agree, no one can take you away. Su Zhan casually comforted Chenharan. Seeing Su Zhan's completely nonchalant and relaxed tone, Chenharan also breathed a sigh of relief. Although his life has not been affected much, no one wants to be supervised or monitored. What is the difference between this and going to jail? How can I become stronger? Chenharan asked expectantly. Su Zhan smiled and shook his head. Don't worry. In fact, it's easy for you to become stronger, and you have unique advantages. When I finish the work at hand, I will naturally help you. During this period, you will be shining and your bones will be together. How familiar and familiar, after all, you will fight side by side in the future, but you are comrades. After a pause, Su Zhan waved to Twinkle and Skeleton for them to come over, and then said, although we have a small number of people at the moment, our future development will definitely be bigger and bigger, so we need a base, but I don't have time right now, it should be soon, just come back. So, I leave this matter to you. Huan will be the captain for the time being, and you are responsible for looking for a suitable place as a base for our future development. As for the money, I will give it to you when I come back. You want to leave? Don't you want us to follow? Huan heard this and asked in disappointment. Su Zhan shook his head. The place we are going to this time is very dangerous, and there is nothing you can do to help. If you really want to help me, just work hard to improve your strength. Well, don't worry, we will. Huan secretly vowed to work hard to become stronger, so that he would not let down Su Zhan's expectations. Then what are our names? Bones asked curiously. The name of the team. This Su Zhan really hadn't thought about it. Since Bones asked, Su Zhan said casually, let's call it a war alliance. We will face countless battles in the future. Life will never end and the battle will not stop. War Alliance. It sounds very good. Bones muttered it again, very satisfied with the name. Although it is very simple, it is very powerful, especially since life is endless and fighting is endless, it is more like a purpose. In the face of danger, never retreat, life will last, and the fight will not stop. Shuang muttered and nodded heavily. The name of the team was decided. This money will be used as funds for your activities for the time being. Since you are following me, I can't let you be wronged. Su Zhan took out all the money in the system space and gave it to Huan Huan. It was not much, less than 600 thousands of dollars. If this money is used to build a base, it is definitely not enough, but if it is pocket money or activity funds, it will be a lot. Put the money away first, we have guests. Su Zhan pursed his lips and said something. Huan Huan put the money away, but was a little curious about what guests were coming. Boom! The door to the room was kicked open, and a group of heavily armed teams came in instantly, with the dark muzzles pointed directly at them. Crystals instantly appeared on the flashing hand, and bones suddenly appeared on the skeletal shoulder next to it, turning into two bone knives held in the hand. Chen Haoran was a little confused. He had no fighting experience, but at least he was not panicked. Su Zhan casually leaned on the sofa and frowned slightly as he looked at the enemies rushing in. Didn't anyone tell you that it's rude to be a guest like this? That's more polite than suddenly taking Chen Haoran away, right? Su Zhan, what do you want to do? One of the guys who seemed to be in charge asked Su Zhan sharply. First, Chen Haoran is free and not your goods. Whoever he wants to go with is his freedom, so it is not impolite for me to do this. Second, you want to know what I want to do? Okay, I want to tell you what is politeness. Su Zhan stretched out his fingers and waved them slightly. In an instant, those people's guns flew out of their hands and floated in the air. Immediately afterwards, he felt as if there was a suction force behind him, and they flew out one after another. Room. Chapter 33. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Like a pile of arhats, lying at the door. Chen Haoran's eyes widened, and the spectacular sight in front of him was a bit unimaginable. It turns out that Su Zhan has this kind of ability besides flames. No wonder his expression was so calm and casual when he said it just now. Consider what it means to be polite before coming in. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I'll be as friendly as just throwing you out next time. Su Zhan glanced at the angry person in charge and said calmly, click click click. The guns suspended in the air turned their muzzles one by one and pointed at the door. The person in charge stopped immediately and no longer dared to act rashly. Chapter 0042. If you want to move, you will die if you don't. Su Zhan, don't forget your identity. You are from S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you know what you are doing? The man did not dare to act rashly and could only shout angrily at Su Zhan. Su Zhan stretched out his finger and shook his head. Following the movement of his finger, the gun in the air made the same movement almost simultaneously. First of all, I'm not from S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm just a consultant. I haven't really joined your S.H.I.E.L.D. Chen Haoran has followed me now. To put it simply, he is now mine and he no longer has to accept you. If you are not convinced, then let's fight. You will be used to train my team. You are starting a war with S.H.I.E.L.D. by doing this. Are you sure you want to do this? The person in charge asked sternly. Are you scaring me? I've really had enough. 1 and 2 are like this, and they both feel that they are superior and arrogant. I'm telling you right now, man, I'm going to make a decision. If you want to do something, you'll die if you don't. Listen. Do you understand? Su Zhan was not a young boy. The reason why he deliberately pretended to be helpless in the beginning before taking action was just to avoid causing trouble. After all, being arrogant before you have the strength is not called awesome, nor is it called showing off, it is called stupid. A desperate virus and the ability to control fire can attempt to be invincible and arrogant, but that is underestimating the superheroes in the Marvel world. But now, Su Zhan has absorbed many abilities, including the ability of Thunderbolt, and has his own team. Although it is impossible to fight against the whole world, he at least has the strength to protect himself. In this case, there was no need for Su Zhan to deliberately restrain himself. He may not necessarily be a bad person, but he wants everyone to know that he is not something that everyone can shout about. I hope you won't regret your decision. Seeing that Su Zhan had made up his mind, the person in charge wanted to shout loudly and take action, but he didn't dare. He knew very well that he was no match for this group of people. Therefore, I just said harsh words and prepared to ask the director for instructions. After all, this is not just about Chenharan. Nick Fury received the news soon, and he was really surprised when he heard the news. Although he knew that Su Zhan was not the kind of person who would submit to others, he never expected that he would have the confidence to confront S.H.I.E.L.D. so soon. He now wanted to gather people and let Su Zhan know that S.H.I.E.L.D. was not someone to be trifled with. However, he restrained his impulse. Inform Captain America and ask him to talk to Su Zhan and see what he wants to do. After hesitating for a moment, Nick Fury decided to give in and let Captain America talk to Su Zhan. Director, Captain America's phone number is temporarily unavailable. As soon as Nick Fury finished speaking, Hill next to him spoke. I can't get through, how is it possible? Nick Fury was a little confused and called Captain America himself. At the same time, Su Zhan looked at Captain America in front of him with a smile, and said calmly, the director will call you soon. How could? Captain America didn't believe it. He was suddenly brought here. He didn't understand what was going on. When he heard Su Zhan's words, he didn't believe that Nick Fury would call him. But before he finished speaking, the phone rang. Looking at the name on the caller ID, Captain America glanced at Su Zhan in disbelief and answered the call. It's me, you mean Su Zhan? Okay, I don't think so. Just a minute ago, I was brought here by him. He is now opposite me, and he was there before your phone rang. Tell me you will call me. Okay, I understand. After Captain America finished speaking, he hung up the phone, looked at Su Zhan and said, okay, should I thank you for bringing me here in advance? This is predicting the future. Ability? Or profit? It's really powerful. But since I'm here, let's talk about business. What do you think? Su Zhan did predict the future. Although this ability was sometimes unreliable and felt useless, it could still be useful at critical moments. He had just sensed that Nick Fury was looking for Captain America and directly ordered General Blink. Captain America brought it in advance. I believe that at this time, both Captain America and Nick Fury will have to weigh the cost of being an enemy of a person who can predict the future. In fact, Nick Fury did change his mind. From the phone call just now, he knew that Captain America was taken there in advance, and he knew how powerful Su Zhan was. Originally, he had not decided to break up with Su Zhan, and even less so now, so he just asked Captain America to ask Su Zhan about his plans and attitude on the phone. As for Chenharan, it didn't matter anymore. Let them go back to where they came from first. They really scare me here. Su Zhan glanced at the group of people and said. They are the ones who are afraid, right? Captain America complained in his mind, and then waved his hand towards them. You should leave first, I will take care of the things here. As his voice fell, the guns suspended in the air flew back to their hands. Those people looked at their guns, glanced at Captain America, and turned around to leave. It's much easier now. Su Zhan smiled and snapped his fingers. The red wine and wine glass next to him flew over automatically. Weirdly, he poured the wine into the wine glass and then dropped it aside. Su Zhan extended his hand to invite, sit down, I'll introduce you to the members of my team. We should interact with you often in the future. Chapter 0043 London, a place of space chaos. Captain America briefly understood the current situation and sat down to listen to Su Zhan introduce his team. Flash, Skeleton, Chenharan. There are not many people, but everyone has their own abilities. Of course, Captain America doesn't care about these. What he cares about is what Su Zhan wants to do. He didn't know Su Zhan very well. The last time they met was because of the Thunderbolt incident. He didn't have the chance to have an in-depth chat, and he couldn't say that he had any special impression. Later, I learned about Su Zhan's information. Captain America felt that Su Zhan was a very well-planned and capable person. At least he did a perfect job swallowing the Human Torch, even if he did it on purpose. But no one can say anything. Just a show of weakness and a pretended helpless counterattack allowed him to successfully swallow up the Human Torch's ability without any trouble. This is a smart man. Therefore, Captain America now wants to know why Su Zhan suddenly took the initiative and formed his own team so actively, even at the expense of starting a war with S.H.I.E.L.D. You gathered these people and formed your own team. Why? Captain America wanted to know, so he asked directly. Why? It's very simple. At the very least, I need my own strength to protect myself and the people around me. At the most serious level, it's to prepare in advance and deal with future crises. Su Zhan said, looking at Captain America. What crisis are you referring to? Captain America couldn't take Su Zhan's words lightly and thought it was just a worry. After all, he could see the future. Many, more than you can imagine. Su Zhan said calmly. Even so, you can actually have a better solution to this matter. Captain America was referring to Chinharan. Su Zhan shrugged. Even so, wouldn't the result be the same? I don't need to prove anything, because time is the best proof. Captain America, you are the person I admire more, not your ability, but your spirit. If you need help one day in the future, you can always come to me. I will remember your words, then, my mission is completed. Can you trouble your people to send me back? You know, I don't have time to prepare my wallet when I come. Captain America said helplessly. No problem at all. Su Zhan nodded towards Twinkle and said, send Captain America to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s aircraft carrier. This will save Captain America from having to make another trip after arriving home. Is this the future you predicted? Captain America asked curiously. No, this is just normal reasoning. The director must want to see you. Su Zhan said with a smile. Captain America spread his hands and realized that he had asked a very stupid question. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The portal closed, and the next second, Blink and Captain America appeared on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s aircraft carrier. The agents on the aircraft carrier were a little surprised to see the sudden appearance of Flicker and Captain America. Soon, Nick Fury and Hill had already arrived. Looking at Flicker, Nick Fury was obviously curious. I know you, Clarice, a free mutant, but I didn't expect you to fight with Su Zhan. My name is Twinkle now. Okay, Twinkle, thank you for sending Captain America back. Nick Fury wanted to say more, but Blink had already opened the portal and teleported away. The abilities of mutants are really powerful. Nick Fury sighed and said to Captain America, how is it? Captain America shook his head. He said there would be many crises in the future, so he formed a team. He also said that time will prove everything. It doesn't seem like he is lying. Hopefully. Nick Fury sighed. London, an abandoned neighborhood. A ball of fire fell from the sky, the flames disappeared, and Su Zhan looked around. There was an abandoned box truck lying on the ground next to it, with several boxes erected around it, which was very strange. Su Zhan walked in and saw a truck. He reached out curiously and lifted it gently. The truck slowly floated like a balloon. This should be the right place. Seeing this situation, Su Zhan was not surprised, but rather happy. Going upstairs along the steps, when I reached the middle, I casually dropped it towards the gap in the stairwell. The stone fell quickly and suddenly disappeared, and then fell from above. When I reached a certain place, it reappeared from above, and it started over and over again. Infinite loop. Su Zhan tried to lock the stone with his telekinesis, but when the stone fell, his telekinesis also disappeared. Interesting. Su Zhan said lightly, continued to go upstairs, and soon reached the top floor. He could feel that there was something unusual about the room on the left, as if that was the source of spatial chaos. Just as he was about to walk over, a gust of wind suddenly appeared out of thin air, stirring up the dust on the ground. Then the room in the distance suddenly turned into a black hole, and the strong suction sucked Su Zhan in an instant. Snap. Su Zhan landed and looked up. The scene in front of him had changed drastically. He came to another dimension. Chapter 0044 Ether Particles. Seeing endless darkness and surrounded by towering rocks, Su Zhan stood on the edge of the cliff, hearing a heavy sound like the whistling of the wind in his ears. The dark and depressing feeling made Su Zhan feel uncomfortable breathing. Turning around, there was a huge rock next to it. At the bottom of the rock, there was a gap as wide as the palm of your hand. There was a faint red light inside, as if something was trapped. Ether particles, that the curve of the corners of Su Zhan's mouth was obvious. This was what he was looking for. It is said that the world was dark when it was born and was ruled by the Dark Elves. Then the Asgardians launched a counterattack, annihilating the Dark Elves and returning the earth to light. The ether particles are the weapons of the Dark Elves' leader Malekith. At the same time, the Reality Stone, which is also one of the Infinity Stones, can return the world to darkness with the help of the power of ether particles. You can imagine how powerful this thing is. Although the Dark Elves were annihilated and expelled, the energy of the ether particles was too strong and could not be destroyed at all. They could only be buried deep underground in Wattheim, the Kingdom of Darkness, which is what Su Zhan saw now. The energy of ether particles is very strong. It will lodge in the human body and absorb the energy of the host. Su Zhan was not sure whether his body could bear it. Although the recovery ability of the extremis virus was very strong, it might not be able to supply ether particles. However, he has a system. He can absorb the ether particles into the system and then slowly devour them, thus avoiding danger. However, many people are staring at this thing. The Dark Elves, Asgard, and the future Thanos are all stronger than the other, especially Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves. He can sense ether particles. Once he gets it, ether particle, he will wake up soon and come to find himself. So Su Zhan's plan is to put the ether particles into the system space immediately after getting them. I believe that even if Malekith is unable to sense the ether particles in the system space, he will not mess around without a target. Looking at the liquid ether particles, Su Zhan slowly stretched out his hand. In an instant, the ether particles had wrapped around Su Zhan's hand and penetrated into his body instantly. Huge power came immediately, and Su Zhan felt that something more in his body was frantically absorbing his energy. Damn! Su Zhan thought that ether particles would be very strong, but he never expected them to be so strong. Almost instantly, Su Zhan felt as if he had been hollowed out. He fainted without even having time to tell the system to let it put the ether particles into the system space. When he fainted, the desperate virus in his body was working crazily, constantly emitting energy, but as soon as this energy appeared, it was directly swallowed by ether particles. At this time, Su Zhan's body was wrapped around ether particles, layer by layer. Surrounded by layers of black halo, the whole person is floating in mid-air, but his eyes are open, and it is extremely dark. I don't know how long it took before Su Zhan regained consciousness. It's worthy of being one of the Infinity Stones. It's so powerful that ordinary people can't possess it. No wonder Thanos is so strong and has to rely on the Infinity Gauntlet. Su Zhan sighed and checked his body. The ether particles have suddenly become integrated with his body and there is no way to get rid of them. At the same time, he could feel that he was slightly weak, but the ability of the extremis virus seemed to be stronger than before. As long as he did not mobilize the energy of the ether particles, there seemed to be no danger for the time being. This is a good sign. System, can you still put ether particles into space? Su Zhan asked towards the system. Yes, but it takes time. The system replied. Then put it away, that he has released the ether particles. The leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith, may have felt it. He may wake up from his slumber, and then lead the Dark Elves to snatch the ether particles, and let the darkness fall again with the help of the spectacle of 9 worlds merging into one line. It's not that Su Zhan is afraid that he won't be able to defeat Malekith, it's just that this guy has too strong control over the ether particles and might be able to take the ether particles away from his body. Therefore, besides not completely devouring the ether particles, he still needs to be careful. Wonderful, the system was about to collect the ether particles into the space, but Su-Jean suddenly noticed a huge force coming from the side, and then a very dazzling light appeared. When he saw this thing, Su-Jean couldn't help but frown. He knows what it is. This is the teleportation array of Immortal Palace. The light dissipated, and a man with blonde hair appeared wearing exquisite armor, red and invincible. And this man has a hammer in his hand. Thor. System, wait a minute. I have other plans. Looking at Thor, Su-Jean shouted to stop the system. Malekith is bound to capture the ether particles, but he needs time to completely devour the ether particles. Now that the God of Thunder is here, he will probably take him to the Immortal Palace. It is a rare opportunity to have such a chance, and it would be a pity not to go and see it. Maybe there are some benefits to be gained. No matter how bad it is, you can still buy time for yourself to swallow the ether particles. Chapter 0045 First Visit to the Immortal Palace. Thunder God Thor, hello, my name is Su-Jean. Su-Jean greeted the Thunder God who was striding towards him, while looking at him curiously. Chapter 35. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Thor didn't seem to expect that Su-Jean would greet him so calmly. He was stunned for a moment and then said, I know you, Su-Jean, you are a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. Yes, so I can barely count myself as one of our own, so I'll tell you straight. I'm here just for the ether particles. I can control the ether particles, but I think most of you won't believe it. In this case, I just take the initiative and go to the Immortal Palace with you. Su-Jean said with a smile. The ether particles are very powerful and dangerous. No one can control them. Thor really didn't believe that Su-Jean could control the ether particles. It would be best if you would come with me to the Fairy Palace. Why not? I'm very curious about the Immortal Palace. Su-Jean smiled and shrugged. Heimdall, that the God of Thunder shouted to the sky, and soon the light of the teleportation array enveloped Su-Jean and the God of Thunder, and they were immediately teleported to the Immortal Palace. Behind him is a graceful and mysterious universe. In front of him, a black man wearing golden armor holding a giant sword was none other than Heimdall, the guardian of Asgard. Welcome to the Immortal Palace. Heimdall said to Su-Jean. Su-Jean nodded and followed Thor across the Rainbow Bridge. Although he has seen the beauty of the Fairy Palace in the movie, the feeling of seeing it with his own eyes is different. It is more beautiful and majestic than what is shown in the movie. Hey, who is this? A black-haired woman wearing armor, holding a shield in one hand and a sword in the other said hello to Thor and looked at Su-Jean. Hello, Sif. Su-Jean said to her before Thor could speak. I'm from Earth, my name is Su-Jean. Sif frowned slightly. She didn't like the feeling of being glib. She preferred brave warriors. I'll take him to work first, and I'll find you later. Thor said something, and Su-Jean smiled at Sif and waved goodbye. Sif turned a blind eye to this. The inspection process is very simple. It may seem mysterious, like magic or enchantment, but in fact it is the same as science. Su-Jean was very cooperative during the whole process. There was no way they could take away the ether particles from his body anyway. The situation is not good. We have no way to take out the ether particles, and he may be in danger. The inspector next to him said something to Sol, and Sol looked at Su-Jean and said, Don't worry, I will find a way to help you. Su-Jean shrugged. You seem to have forgotten that I said before that I have a way to control it. Thor shook his head. He didn't believe that anyone could control ether particles, but since there was no good way for the time being, that was all he could do. After the inspection, Sol arranged a room for Su-Jean. Naturally, Su-Jean could not be allowed to leave until there was no other way. Su-Jean was even more eager to stay. Thor, why don't you get me a set of clothes? After all, my style is very different from your style here, isn't it? Seeing Thor about to leave, Su-Jean hurriedly called to him. Thor nodded, and soon someone sent him a set of clothes. Looking at this suit of clothes, Su-Jean was very happy. This is the armor of the Immortal Palace. Can anything produced by the Immortal Palace be inferior? No matter the materials or the defensive capabilities, they are not comparable to the craftsmanship on Earth. It is extremely suitable and comfortable to wear. Sure enough, I made the right decision to come to the Immortal Palace. Just now, I got a set of armor. Su Zhan looked at his mighty appearance in the mirror and was very satisfied. The only drawback is that it is a bit heavy. This is also related to the fact that all his current energy has to support the ether particles. Otherwise, this weight will have no impact. Su Zhan did not rush to absorb the ether particles, but went out for a walk to understand the situation of the Immortal Palace and experience the customs here. Asgard, that is, Asgard, is indeed a good place, especially the Asgardians are very friendly and hospitable. Although Su Zhan is an outsider, he does not discriminate or resist. On the contrary, he is very welcoming. Hi, we meet again. While walking, Su Zhan met Zif. Zif frowned slightly and said nothing. You seem to hate me. Why? Su Zhan was not blind, so how could he not see Zif's attitude? However, Su Zhan was very interested in Sif. Sif, the female warrior of Asgard and the sister of Heimdall, has also come to Earth. The most important thing is that she is a true cold goddess. You'd better disappear from my sight immediately, otherwise, my sword will be disrespectful. Zif said coldly. The sword in her hand was already pointed at Su Zhan. Su Zhan shrugged. He didn't understand why he offended Zif. Why was she so cold to him when everyone else was so friendly? Hey, you are so brave, you dare to provoke our female warrior. An Asgardian next to him smiled and said, don't mind, Sif has such a personality, even we dare not provoke her easily. Only real warriors and real men can enter her eyes. Snort. Zif snorted coldly, threw a sword flower, sheathed the sword, and turned around to leave. What happened? Su Zhan asked the man curiously. The man explained enthusiastically. Obviously, he admired Su Zhan's courage and dared to provoke Sif when he first arrived. You don't have to think too much. Sif is not targeting you. For her, only a true warrior can conquer her. She has always been like this for ordinary men. Of course, if you hadn't gone to strike up a conversation, maybe it can be better. The only thing she hates is the kind of glib man. This is Asgard, not Atrium, so, you may have misunderstood her. If you want to gain her favor, just show your strength and bravery are enough. I guarantee that her attitude towards you will change. Well, no matter where you are, strong people are welcome. However, a woman like Sif, no, a goddess, really makes people feel conquered. Chapter 0046 Chaos in Immortal Palace. After a feast of Asgardian food and wine, Su Zhan returned to the room assigned to him and prepared to start devouring ether particles. At present, the ether particles are relatively stable for the time being. Although they have been absorbing their own energy, it is not too much. At least they can recover. However, it is very difficult to completely make the ether particles his own. He does not dare to mobilize the power of the ether particles too much now, and can only slowly devour and fuse them, but the progress is very slow, the devouring effect is greatly reduced, and the ether particles are not so stable and willing to be absorbed. Therefore, as soon as Su Zhan started to devour it, it tried its best to resist. This process was not so beautiful, and could even be said to be quite painful. According to the current progress, I don't know how long it will take to completely swallow it. This makes Su Zhan a little depressed. If it can't be completely swallowed, he won't be able to fully use this power, let alone Malekith, who can take away the ether particles. The guy made him dare not use it easily. This won't work. We have to think of a way. Otherwise, wouldn't we get the ether particles in vain? Not only would there be no benefit, but we would be restricted in every way. Su Zhan frowned. Before he could completely swallow the ether particles, he had to get them. A container that can hold ether particles like the Infinity Gauntlet, so that you can avoid the harm caused by ether particles to yourself, and you can also use the energy of ether particles, but this kind of container is hard to find. It seems that the second copy needs to be carefully considered. The night passed quietly. the first night in the Immortal Palace was spent in Su Zhan's thoughts. Early the next morning, Su Zhan woke up and prepared to go out for a walk. He also wanted to see if he could find out where the treasure trove of the Immortal Palace was. There were all good things in there, and any item he took out would be worth it on Earth. There is energy to destroy the world. Not long after he left, Su Zhan saw Sif and a few people passing by, seemingly carrying some prisoners of war. One of them was wearing a helmet and was very eye-catching. Moving so fast. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Zhan frowned slightly. The origin of that guy was not simple. The leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith's first subordinate, was the only cursed warrior left. It seems that the Dark Elves are preparing to invade Asgard in a large scale. It seems that I have to hurry up. Su Zhan muttered something to himself, turned and left. Su Zhan had already become familiar with hanging around here yesterday, and he did it deliberately, and he soon figured out the location of the treasure house of the Immortal Palace. But he didn't do anything. Instead, he went to find the God of Thunder. You know my identity, and you should know some of my abilities, right? Su Zhan went to Thor and asked directly. Thor nodded. Then you know that I have the ability to predict the future, right? Although this ability is not very reliable, it is very accurate. It is also because of this ability that I can go to the Dark Kingdom to find ether particles. Just now, I felt again that there might be trouble in the fairy palace already. Su Zhan said in a deep voice. Thor frowned. If you are joking, this is not funny. I also hope this is a joke. Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, invaded Asgard. Countless Asgard warriors died, and this place was almost turned into ruins. Believe me, Thor, I am not joking. You'd better be prepared. Brother, thank you for your kind reminder, but if they dare to come, I will let them know the price of invading Asgard. Thor patted Su Zhan on the shoulder gratefully, but for Su Zhan's reminder obviously didn't take it to heart. I just don't know whether he doesn't believe in the future predicted by Su Zhan or whether he doesn't pay attention to the Dark Elves. Arrogant Thor, I've warned you anyway, believe it or not, it's up to you. Su Zhan said secretly in his heart. At this moment, the harsh bell suddenly rang, and Thor's expression suddenly changed. This is Asgard's warning bell. Something happened. I'll go take a look. Please be safe. After saying that, Thor waved his hammer and flew away. Su Zhan shrugged, smiled and said, the attack of the Dark Elves has begun. Then I have to hurry up. The treasure house of the fairy palace, don't let me down. At this time, the prison was already in turmoil. The cursed warrior had come out of the prison, killed several Asgard warriors, smashed other cells, and released the prisoners of war inside. When these prisoners of war got the chance, they naturally began to resist. At this time, the cursed warrior was standing in front of the cell where Loki was imprisoned. Loki looked at the cursed warrior with a calm expression. His move seemed to anger the cursed warrior a little. Instead of opening the cell and letting Loki out as before, Loki turned around and left. Hey, you better go left. Loki in the cell suddenly shouted, and the cursed warrior glanced at him without saying a word, then turned and left. Not long after the cursed warriors left, Thor, the god of thunder, had arrived and threatened to let the prisoners of war return to their cells and forget about it. Unfortunately, these prisoners of war obviously had no such intention, and they soon started fighting again. At the same time, the spaceship of the Dark Elf Malekith entered Asgard invisibly. Although the guardian Heimdall discovered it, he failed to stop it. Small fighter jets had come out of the spacecraft and launched an attack. In chaos, Asgard was completely caught in the flames of war. At this time, Su Zhan had already arrived near the treasure house. Chapter 0047. Killing the Cursed Warrior. The Immortal Palace was completely in chaos. Along the way, Su Zhan saw countless Immortal Palace warriors running to various places to provide support. The war was gradually spreading, and even the guards near the treasure house had rushed to join the battle. This made Su Zhan feel happy. Arriving at the entrance of the treasure house, Su Zhan opened the door directly. As soon as he entered, Su Zhan felt like he was blinded. Damn, the good things here are too big, right? Now I'm rich. Su Zhan looked east and west, and couldn't help but laugh. Everything here seems very simple, and Su Zhan can't understand it at all. After glancing around, Su Zhan's eyes were fixed on a table in the center. There was a box on this table. He could feel that this thing was a little unusual because the ether particles in his body became extremely active. Such an abnormal behavior. It is enough to show that this box is extraordinary. As soon as Su Zhan got close, he felt extremely cold, as if his whole body was frozen. This cold made him couldn't help but activate the extremis virus, turning his surroundings into magma and raising the temperature. Only then did he feel better. Isn't this the treasure of the Ice Giant clan, the box of ice? Su Zhan's eyes lit up. This is a good thing. It contains the strange cold of the Death Kingdom. Once it is opened, it will release enough the power of frost that turned the 9 kingdoms into an ice age. System, put it away. Su Zhan put his hand on the icebox and said to the system. In an instant, the icebox had disappeared. Afterwards, Su Zhan looked around for other good things. He remembered that there seemed to be other good things here, such as the cosmic cube, which was also one of the infinite gems, and the eternal fire, which came from the fire giant Surt. Snatched from the realm, Surt's giant sword can even destroy the god realm after being tempered with eternal fire. This shows how powerful it is. Moreover, it seems that there should be an obelisk here, which is the crystal of the Inhumans, a good thing that can be used to awaken the Inhumans. It can be said that there are many universe-level good things in the treasure house in the fairy palace. Just as Su Zhan was about to find the next target, he suddenly felt the ground shaking slightly and heard a faint roar. Immediately afterwards, he saw a huge body walking in. Curse warrior. Su Zhan was surprised. Wasn't he supposed to destroy the defense system of the Immortal Palace and protect the invasion of the Dark Elf leader Malekith? Why are you here looking for yourself? Has he already succeeded? The cursed warrior was not Malekith, so there was no need to worry that he could take away the ether particles. Looking at the cursed warrior rushing over, Su Zhan raised the corner of his mouth. Okay, let me try it on you to see the power of ether particles. As soon as Su Zhan thought, ether particles suddenly appeared around him, making him feel like he was in darkness. After a moment, they suddenly flew out, bang bang bang. The cursed warrior was beaten back continuously. After 3 and 2 steps, Su Zhan turned the ether particles into a spear and stabbed it suddenly. Phew! It directly penetrated the body of the cursed warrior. The cursed warrior's ugly eyes widened in disbelief, as if he couldn't believe that he was defeated like this. He struggled to take out a grenade-like object and threw it towards Su Zhan. After throwing it out, he tilted his head and died. Depend on. Seeing this grenade, Su Zhan didn't dare to take it lightly. The power of this thing was very strong. After the explosion, it would create a spiral nest like a black hole, which could suck anything in and then crush it without leaving any residue. Mobilizing the power of ether particles to protect himself, Su Zhan jumped away instantly. The moment he jumped away, a swirling nest was created, directly crushing the platform holding the icebox. It's okay now, I've even prepared an excuse for myself. Looking at the disappearing stage, Su Zhan couldn't help but thank the cursed warrior. However, the movement here also attracted the attention of others. Su Zhan could hear footsteps. It seemed that he could only give up on other things for the time being. You can't be too greedy. A box of ice is already a huge harvest. After withdrawing the ether particles, Su Zhan instantly felt exhausted and sat slumped on the ground. The load is too great. It's you, why are you here? A figure rushed in, and Ziff looked at Su Zhan, who was slumped aside with some surprise. He chased me. Chapter 37. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Su Zhan pointed at the cursed warrior who had died. Only then did Sif realize that the cursed warrior was already dead. She looked at Su Zhan in disbelief. Did you kill him? You could actually kill the cursed warrior. What? Doesn't it look like it? It's wrong to judge people by their appearance. Su Zhan said calmly. Looking at your appearance now, it's really hard for people to believe that the cursed warrior was killed by you. Sif said, and found that the icebox was gone. Don't look at me, this guy shot something like a grenade, created a whirlpool, and sucked it away. Su-Jean paid attention to Sif's gaze and said simply. Sif frowned and said decisively, let's talk about this later. The Dark Elves have invaded Asgard. They are looking for you. You come with me. My mission is to protect your safety. I really want to leave. Su-Jean grinned bitterly. The power of ether particles is indeed strong. Killing cursed warriors is as easy as cutting vegetables, but the load is also heavy. He doesn't even have the strength to stand up now. The sound of the fighting became stronger and stronger, and Sif frowned and said, come up, I'll carry you. You're carrying me? Isn't that bad? You are too weak, and you still have ether particles. If Molesky finds you and gets the ether particles, you will be in trouble. Sif said contemptuously, with a completely businesslike attitude for the mission. Well, the cold goddess is the cold goddess. Sif knelt down in front of Su-Jean, and Su-Jean lay on her back a little embarrassed. Sif carried him quickly and left here very easily. Looking at her relaxed look, it seemed as if she didn't feel the weight at all. At first, Su-Jean was a little embarrassed, but when he thought about it, he was also the first man that Shifu carried on her back. This was definitely the first time for such an intimate gesture. Hey, Goddess Sif, put me down. After running for a while, Su-Jean suddenly spoke. Sif frowned and said, do you think I am willing to carry you? I am doing this for the mission. Unfortunately, unless you can send me away from Asgard, Malekith will always find me. Running away like this is not an option, so let me down. Su-Jean chuckled. Said. Sif stopped and hesitated, but Su-Jean jumped down on his own. Honestly, even if you are a goddess, you are still a woman after all, and having a woman carry you is a bit pricey. I heard that you like real warriors and real men. If I can defeat Molesky, then forget it, right? How about making a date with me when the time comes? Su-Jean shook his wrist and said with a smile. Sif pouted. You still want to defeat Molesky? Because you have ether particles. Unfortunately, ether particles are of no use to him. Who told you that I couldn't defeat him without ether particles? Su-Jean said with narrowed eyes. Okay, if you can really defeat him, I will recognize you as a warrior and date you. That's what you said. Su-Jean smiled, his eyes suddenly became sharp, staring straight ahead. The leader of the Dark Elves, Molesky, has appeared. Chapter 0048. Who is the ant? Sif held a shield and a sword, staring at Malekith seriously. As the leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith is better looking than the average Dark Elves, but only compared to the Dark Elves. Judging from Su-Jean's aesthetics, this guy is indeed ugly. I'm here to get what's mine. Malekith didn't even look at Sif, he stared at Su-Jean and said slowly. Now that the thing is in my hands, there is no reason to give it back. If you want it, fine, you can get it yourself. After Su-Jean's words fell, the ether particles suddenly disappeared from his body, disappearing so suddenly. How is that possible? Malekith found that he could no longer sense the existence of ether particles. If you beat me, you can take it back. Su-Jean waved his wrist and got ready to fight. Humble people of Midgard, you will see the power of darkness. Malekith shouted angrily and rushed towards Su-Jean. Sif subconsciously prepared to take action, but suddenly felt that her body could not move. Hey, goddess, didn't you just make a bet? Just stand there and don't move. Su-Jean used telekinesis to stop Sif, and under Sif's surprised gaze, he turned around and rushed towards Malekith. Boom. Fist to fist, they were evenly matched. Molesky was surprised, and so was Sif, especially when they saw Su-Jean raise the corner of his mouth and kept attacking. In an instant, his impression in her heart changed drastically. If you still have the courage to fight in the face of Molesky, you can already be called a warrior. What's more, it seems that Su-Jean is not at a disadvantage. Fists, elbows, side kicks. Although Su-Jean has not systematically learned fighting, his physical fitness and reaction ability are by no means ordinary. However, Malekith is the leader of the Dark Elves after all, and he is by no means an easy man. Although Sujan's attack was powerful, it could not cause much damage to Malekith. Is it just like this? Is it just like this? You are indeed an ant-like Midgardian. Give up, hand over the ether particles, and I can spare your life. Maleski said arrogantly. Ant? You're really pretentious. Anyway, let's see who is the ant. Sujan sneered and backed away suddenly. Sif, stay away. A true warrior never retreats. Sif didn't know what he was going to do, but she could feel that she had regained her freedom. She raised her sword and said in a deep voice. I don't want to hurt you, Sujan said in a deep voice. If you can. Sif was stubborn and refused to back down. Unfortunately, Sujan couldn't care less. He really wanted to let Maleski know who the real ant was. Boom! The flames were instantly released from Sujan's body, spinning around rapidly. With the choice, the temperature became higher and higher, getting higher and higher. Sif's ability could no longer bear it, but the temperature was still rising rapidly. Sujan gradually became blurry in the flames, and his figure could only be seen vaguely. Do you know the power of a supernova explosion? I wonder if this temperature can melt a dark elf like you. It just so happens that my highest temperature can reach a supernova, so. I want to see who is the real ant. In the flames, Sujan's voice slowly came out, and the surrounding ground and walls couldn't withstand the scorching heat, collapsed, and were burned to ashes. Chapter 38. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Sif was already very far away, staring at Sujan in the flames with wide eyes. Malekith was calm at first and didn't take Sujan seriously, but as the flames released by Sujan became hotter and hotter, the calmness on his face no longer existed. Surprise, and even a little bit of fear. As a dark elf, light and fire are things that they hate to resist, especially this kind of high temperature, which can reach supernova, makes him feel that his power is losing rapidly. Run. He had to run, he couldn't withstand this kind of temperature. I want to run away, but it seems you are not that strong, ant. Seeing Maleski turn around and run away, Sujan sneered and flew out suddenly. The high temperature hit, and Sujan, who was in the flames, suddenly swung his fist and hit Maleski directly. Hearing Maleski scream, his body flew out instantly, smashed the wall, and then flew directly out. In the blink of an eye, he was knocked away and disappeared. Stop, stop. Sif could feel that the entire palace seemed to be burned to the point of being unable to hold up, and she hurriedly shouted to Sujan. Sujan didn't say anything. The flames burst out and flew out quickly. He flew quickly in the air and rushed towards the dark elf fighter jet. Stretching his hands forward, a layer of high flames was generated around him. Before they could touch the dark elf fighter jets, the fighter jets exploded one after another and were burned to ashes at the moment of explosion. 1, 2, the sound of explosions kept coming, instantly attracting the attention of everyone in Asgard. They watched the fighter jets being destroyed. In the blink of an eye, all the dark elf fighter jets had been annihilated. Ho ho ho, there were shouts of excitement from below, celebrating victory. Sujan slowly controlled the temperature of the flame, lowered it little by little, and finally flew back to Sif's side. After landing, the flame on his body had disappeared. Remember the bet, you have to date me. Looking at Sif, Sujan smiled and said a few words, and then fell forward. Sif hurriedly supported Sujan and was relieved when she found that he had just fainted due to loss of strength. Seeing Sujan lying in her arms, Sif's face couldn't help but blush, and her eyes were involuntarily filled with admiration. Chapter 0049 Dating with Sif. You're awake. Sujan slowly opened his eyes and heard a very gentle voice in his ear. He turned his head and found Sif sitting next to him, looking at him with concern. Well, where am I? Sujan sat up in response, and his memory emerged. He remembered that he used a supernova to knock Maleski away, letting him know who was the ant. Then he seemed to faint from exerting too much force. The Human Torch's fire ability is indeed very strong. No wonder even Galactus has to get a Galactus like the Human Torch in the later stage. This is my house. Sif said softly. Your home? Su-Jean looked at it curiously. To be honest, I really couldn't tell that this looked like a woman's room. Considering Sif's character, it made sense. After you defeated Malekith and fainted, I brought you home. I didn't expect you to be so powerful, even without ether particles, you are still so strong. It's just a pity, that Malekith run away. Sif said in amazement, then shook her head slightly disappointed. Only then did Su-Jean realize that Sif's voice had always been gentle when talking to him, without any of the coldness she had before. Ran? Su-Jean was a little surprised. He thought Malekith was dead, but he didn't expect that he ran away. The leader of the Dark Elves is indeed extraordinary, but if he can defeat him once, he will win a second time. After completely swallowing the ether particles, Maleski has nothing to fear. What's the situation outside now? Su-Jean asked. Not good. Sif's face looked a little heavy. This time the Dark Elves launched a massive attack, and Asgard suffered heavy losses. However, Odin has organized manpower and is ready to make the Dark Elves pay the price. That's it. Even if Odin's character is definitely not at a disadvantage, Maleski will definitely make a comeback. After all, the ether particles are too important to him. But this is nothing to do with me. As long as the 9-star unity is over, even if Maleski comes to him, it will be of no use. Without the wonder of the 9-star unity, he wants to rely on ether particles to return the world to the basics of darkness. It's impossible. You won't regret your previous bet, right? Su-Jean looked at Sif and said suddenly. Sif paused and her face turned slightly red, but she did not avoid it. She nodded and said, of course not. You are a true warrior. I am very willing to date you. You may not know it yet, but you are almost becoming a hero in Asgard now. You killed the cursed warrior, injured Maleski, and destroyed the Dark Elf's attack. I don't know how many women want to date you. Sif said with a smile. Looking at Sif's smile, Su-Jean was a little crazy. He subconsciously grabbed her hand and said, your smile is so beautiful. Smile more in the future. I like your smile. But I can only smile at me alone. Sif said nothing, but nodded shyly. Looking at her look, Su-Jean suddenly asked, I heard that you only like warriors. There should be many warriors in the Immortal Palace. You should have seen many warriors, right? Don't meet someone stronger than me then. What if you fall in love with someone else again? Sif's smile faded and she said angrily, who do you think I am? I do like strong warriors, that's because only warriors who are stronger than me deserve my love. But I'm not the kind of person who doesn't want to. As long as I identify a woman with a beautiful face, I will stick with you forever. Maybe there will be someone stronger than you in the future, but as long as you keep working hard, you will definitely surpass her, right? I feel relieved when you say that, haha. As long as you give me time, believe me. I will become the strongest person in the world, no one. Su-Jean was relieved, and he was so proud that he laughed. Only then did Sif react. She slapped him angrily and said, I almost asked you to go around. I just said I would go on a date with you and nothing else. It doesn't matter, at least I'm the first man to date you, and I should be the last one. Just because there's nothing else now, doesn't mean there won't be anything else in the future. So, Goddess Sif, when will we start dating? Su-Jean asked with a smile. Let go of my hand first. Sif said angrily. Instead of letting go, Su-Jean tightened his grip. It's a date, of course we have to hold hands. Really? Sif didn't really know. After all, her life was basically training, fighting, fighting. She had never dated at all, and she had never seen anyone else date. Of course it's true. Are you okay today? Everyone outside is busy anyway, so there's no point in us going out. Why don't we just stay at home, and it's just you and me going on a date alone? But, what can I do at home? Sif asked in confusion. Su-Jean chuckled. It's great to be able to do something. What's more, even if I don't do anything, it's nice to be alone with you. Glib tongue, Ziv said angrily, but her expression was not angry at all, but rather a bit coquettish. Chapter 39. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The aloof goddess Sif acts like a coquettish girl. This is huge news. I guess I am the only one who is lucky enough to see it. Chapter 0050. Is this an elopement? The whole day, Sujan and Zif didn't leave home, although there were only two of them and they spent most of the time chatting. They did not feel bored at all. Instead, they felt that time passed very quickly. Sujan told her about things on Earth, and Sif told interesting things about Asgard. Putting aside the bad impression of the first meeting, Sif found Sujan very charming. Although he was not the burly type, he was very handsome, especially the confidence in his words, which fascinated Sif even more. How could a man with confidence and strength not be attractive? Unknowingly, the relationship between the two has become closer. Although they are limited to holding hands and not doing anything else, their mentality is different. For several days in a row, Sujan was with Sif, and their relationship could be said to be advancing by leaps and bounds. However, Sujan is not an Asgardian after all, and he cannot stay here forever. Although Wenwen Township is good, it is not time to enjoy it yet. You want to leave? But when Sujan told Zif that he might be leaving, Zif had a big reaction. Sujan nodded and said with some reluctance, yes, after all, I can't stay here forever. There are still many things waiting for me to do. But don't worry, I will come to see you if I have time. But you can stay a few more days. That feeling of reluctance made Sif feel very uncomfortable. Only then did she realize that Sujan had quietly occupied such an important position in her heart. She didn't want Sujan to leave, but she also knew that Sujan couldn't stay in Asgard forever, and she couldn't stay on Earth permanently. Maleski is hiding to recuperate. Sooner or later he will come back again. Now that the 9 stars are united and the space is in turmoil, I can just kill him completely. Sujan explained. Sif was shocked. You are going to deal with Maleski, do you know where he is? Yeah. Sujan nodded. I'll go with you. Sif said immediately. Sujan shook his head. It's too dangerous, not to mention it's inconvenient for you to leave. I don't trust you to go alone, not to mention that I am Sif. Sif said firmly. Oh well, Sujan thought for a while and agreed. Seeing that he agreed, Sif smiled with satisfaction, but then said worriedly, now that Asgard has been closed, it may not be that easy to get out. I know a secret passage that can directly leave Asgard and reach the Kingdom of Darkness. Sujan said with a smile. You're talking about the place that Loki knows, right? How did you know? Sif asked in surprise. Sujan smiled and said nothing. The two of them arranged their equipment and weapons and prepared to set off. The secret passage was far away, and it was basically difficult to reach it on foot. Sif originally planned to get an Asgard spaceship, but Sujan smiled and hugged her waist. Flames filled the air under his feet, and he immediately jumped into the air and flew directly. Get out! Sujan flew very fast, and it didn't take long for him to arrive at the mysterious passage. After entering, Sujan smiled and said to Sif, do you think this counts as an elopement? It's not like I'm not coming back. Sif said with a blush. The fire illuminated the dim passage. After a moment, the two of them felt that the scenery in front of them suddenly changed. A bright fire appeared in the dark world, as if it was going to light up the whole world. Arrive! Sujan put Sif down and said softly. Malex's spaceship is nearby, but it is invisible and cannot be seen. There are not many dark elves left. I am going to take action directly. Sujan pointed forward and said. Sif didn't even see where the dark elf spaceship was, but she nodded in agreement. Then let's go. Sujan led the way, followed closely by Sif. Because of the ability to predict the future, Sujan knew the spaceship was there even though he couldn't see it. Break it for me! There was nothing in front of him, but Sujan roared low and punched him directly. There was a sound of impact, and Sujan's fist directly penetrated the outer shell of the spacecraft. Then he grabbed the damaged area with both hands and pulled hard. There was a clicking sound, and the cabin door of the spacecraft was pulled down directly, revealing what was inside. The shape of the Dark Elf spaceship is very unique. Unlike other ships that land on their stomachs, they land vertically, with the cab at the top and an elevator-like thing that moves up and down. As soon as he entered, he could hear the sound of an alarm. Su-Jean picked up Sif and flew up directly. Elevators and other things, how can he fly as fast as him? In the blink of an eye, the two of them had arrived above. As soon as they appeared, they saw the Dark Elf holding an energy gun and firing. Su-Jean instantly released the telekinesis field, and a steady stream of chirping sounds were blocked by the telepathy field. As soon as the two landed, the Dark Elves were pulled up and flew up. Su-Jean raised his hand, and the fireball hit them, burning them directly. Without stopping, the two of them ran all the way. The enemies they encountered had already been dealt with by Su-Jean using telekinesis and flames before they even got close. Sif said with some complaint, "You should have saved one for me." "I'm here, how can I be willing to let you do it?" Su-Jean said with a smile. The two of them had arrived at the center of the spacecraft. They could see about a dozen Dark Elves in front of them guarding Molesky. Molesky was lying in the mechanical cabin and seemed to be undergoing treatment. It can be clearly seen that half of his face was burned and turned hideous and ugly. At first glance, it looks like a yin and yang face. "Stop them," Molesky was a little panicked when he saw Su-Jean and Sif. Apparently Su-Jean had left a shadow on him. With a shout, the Dark Elf next to them rushed towards them. Sif took the lead and knocked down one of them with her shield, and then her sword pierced the body of another Dark Elf. So heroic. Looking at Sif's heroic appearance, it was hard for Su-Jean to reconcile with her gentle look before. He was now curious about how Sif would behave if it got to that point. Will she be as hard to tame as a wild horse, or would she well-behaved and gentle? Chapter 0051 Sif's decision. Sif was very strong and could easily deal with several Dark Elves. However, Su-Jean still didn't give her too many chances to take action. Flames flew from his hands. Su-Jean controlled the flames and rushed towards the Dark Elves, flying quickly. Wherever the flames touched, the Dark Elves turned into ashes. Su-Jean even had time to control his telekinesis to protect himself and Sif from the ashes. The only remaining Dark Elf stood in front of Molesky, looking fearfully at Su-Jean, who was approaching step by step. Without the courage to rush over and take action, Su-Jean raised his hand, and the Dark Elf was instantly captured and pushed aside. Looking at Molesky, Su-Jean said jokingly, "Look who this is. The leader of the Dark Elves. Why have you become like an ant now? Where was the arrogance before? Where was the arrogance before?" Chapter 40. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Don't be arrogant. This is the kingdom of darkness, the territory of our Dark Elves. If you dare to offend me and kill the only remaining members of my clan, I will not let you go. Molesky said sternly. Why do I think he is just showing off? He doesn't have the posture of a leader at all. Su-Jean turned to Sif and asked. Sif smiled and answered, because he is bluffing, because he is afraid of you. Dark Elf, haha. From today on, it can become history. Su-Jean smiled. Suddenly a flame rose, and walked towards Molesky step by step. With his pace, the temperature of the flames became higher and higher, and Molesky could even feel the burning sensation on his face getting stronger. The heat hit his face, and Molesky turned to run. Su-Jean waved his hand with a sneer, and the telekinesis field suddenly appeared in front of Molesky, hitting him directly and bouncing him back. Immediately afterwards, the telekinesis field turned into a square, trapping Molesky directly inside. Molesky tried to hit, but the telekinesis field was very strong. Su-Jean slowly stretched out his hand through the telepathy field, and flames instantly swarmed out, filling the entire telepathy field. Supernova power. Su-Jean mobilized the flames and released the power of the supernova again. The only difference was that last time, Su-Jean's whole body turned into flames. This time, it was only his arms. The other parts of his body were normal, even the flames. Get rid. Speaking of which, it was thanks to Pyro's ability to control fire that he could concentrate the flames on his arms and spread them out so freely. No. Molesky's appearance could no longer be seen in the flames. He could only be heard pricking with needles and screaming. Blow it up, that when the temperature of the flame in the mental force field reached a certain limit, Su-Jean shouted loudly. Boom! The flames exploded instantly, like a mushroom cloud of flames. The flames were like waves on the water, rolling layer by layer. Molesky, dark elf, hum. Su-Jean snorted disdainfully, turned to Sif and said, You said I helped Odin kill Molesky, will he thank me? People from the 9 kingdoms will thank you. Sif said seriously, the leader of the Dark Elves, Molesky, was an enemy that gave many powerful people in the 9 kingdoms a headache. He died at the hands of Su-Jean like this. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, and if he hadn't known Su-Jean's ability, Sif would probably not have died. Dare to believe. However, she suddenly thought that with Molesky dead, Su-Jean might have to leave too. Inexplicably, she suddenly felt that if she didn't do something before Su-Jean left, maybe it would just be a wonderful encounter between her and Su-Jean, and it seemed that she would become farther and farther away from Su-Jean. This spaceship is good. I just don't have my own spaceship yet. I can take advantage of this opportunity to bring this spaceship back to Earth. S.H.I.E.L.D. has an aircraft carrier, and I have the Dark Elf spaceship, which is much more advanced than his. Got it, that the reason why Su-Jean came to hunt down Molesky was to avoid future troubles, and the other reason was this spaceship. How could you miss such a great thing? And this case is not on the same level as S.H.I.E.L.D's aircraft carrier. Let's not talk about technology for the time being. The aircraft carrier was built by the Earth itself, and the Dark Elf spaceship is its own trophy. In the future, others will subconsciously weigh this spaceship when they see it. Thinking about it, the Dark Elves were so powerful that they were destroyed by themselves. What about them? This is definitely a deterrent. Su-Jean deliberately threw the last Dark Elf out before destroying it, just so that he could teach him how to pilot the spacecraft. Don't kill me, I am willing to surrender to you. That the Dark Elf had already woken up, and when he saw Su-Jean approaching, he begged for mercy in a panic. Su-Jean curled his lips, teach me how to operate this spaceship. If you perform well, I may consider not killing you. The last Dark Elf would be good as my servant. Hearing that there was a chance to survive, the Dark Elf would not let it go. At that moment, he honestly told Su-Jean the structure, operation methods, etc. of the spacecraft. However, the spacecraft was very large. Although it had an automatic operating system, Su-Jean could not let it go. Jean still wants to understand, so he really can't finish it in just a moment. You'd better not think about running. Su-Jean warned the Dark Elf and then ignored him. That Dark Elf was also honest, or a little cowardly, and he was so well behaved that he didn't dare to run away at all. After all, even a strong man like Molesky was easily killed by Su-Jean, let alone him. Su-Jean, show me the rooms in this spaceship. Although I have been fighting the Dark Elves for a long time, I have never seen what the rooms here look like. Seeing Su-Jean finish his work, Sif came over and said. Okay. I haven't seen it either. Su-Jean responded with a smile and took her hand to see the room here. Looking at each room, they are all ordinary and full of mechanical feeling. They only have rest cabins, which are not the kind of normal rest rooms at all. Finally, we came to a larger and more spacious room, and finally found something similar to a bed, which seemed to be used for rest. These Dark Elves really don't know how to enjoy themselves. Su-Jean shook his head and suddenly heard the sound of the door behind him. He turned around and saw that Sif had closed the door. He was stunned for a moment and saw Sif's expression, shy, determined, and risk it all. Su-Jean suddenly knew what she wanted to do. Just as he was about to speak, Sif suddenly blocked his hand with her hand. Don't talk. I'm afraid that once you speak, I will lose the courage I finally mustered up. I don't know why I made this decision, but there is a voice in my heart, which tells me that if I don't do this I may regret it in the future. I obviously hated your glib talk at first, but now it makes me smile. I feel very lucky to know you, and I want to keep this luck forever. Bang! The armor on Sif's body fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Su-Jean could tell that Sif was nervous, otherwise the armor would not have made such a loud noise when it fell to the ground. A woman, a goddess, mustered up the courage to make a decision. As a man, how could Su-Jean not express anything at this time? It would be too shameless for a woman to take the initiative in this kind of thing. Stop it, let me do it, Su-Jean said softly, and Sif lowered her head and stopped. Chapter 0052 The Return of Lafeng. You're awake, Su-Jean opened his eyes and heard Sif's voice, the same words, but different tone. The most important thing is that Sif was sitting next to him last time, but now she is lying next to him. Why did you wake up so early and didn't take a little rest? Su-Jean said softly. Sif shook her head. I have to go back to Asgard and tell them that Maleski is dead. You will come to see me, right? Of course, I will not only visit you, but believe me, it won't be long before I let you stay with me forever. Su-Jean said with assurance. I'm waiting for that day. Sif said.